So if you own a PX Ford Ranger and you get an oil light that comes on while you're driving, first thing you want to do is shut it off straight away.
Showing off, don't wanna have to wait tonight, bets are off, I'm gonna find my way tonight, won't you talk to me, I wanna heal your sorrow, won't you talk to me, we'll make a new tomorrow, won't you talk to me, one night to find the answer, talk to me, what makes this heart beat faster.
So the PX series of Ford Rangers runs a variable vane oil pump. And essentially what that is, it's an oil pump that increases and lowers the oil pressure depending on engine speed. And in the early models, they were pretty prone to failing. The vanes would separate, and therefore what would happen is you'd get an oil pressure light that come up, and if you kept driving, the engine would eventually seize. Ford did upgrade the oil pump in, I think it was May 2013, to a newer style, but it still is a variable vane type. There are upgrades that you can buy, which are gear type of oil pumps that bolt straight up into the original housing. And today I'm going to be covering how to remove the actual oil pump and install a new one, and everything associated in regards to that. So I'm going to be demonstrating on this engine that I have sitting here. Obviously I've got it tipped up on the side to show you easy access in how to get to the actual sump and actual oil pump itself. When it comes to the car, the oil pump is pretty easy to access from underneath. As you can see, we've got the sump right there. So with your sump, it's going to be a 13mm. This one's got a 17mm sump on it, so it looks like at some stage it's been changed. Then you're going to have 16 8mm bolts all around the perimeter of the sump. You're going to have a 10mm there and another 10mm down there. So next you're going to have a film of sealant that goes all the way around your sump, which is the gasket. I'm going to be using a paint scraper, well, two of them, to separate that, and just wedging it in there and just slowly going around and just going around the perimeter until the actual sump starts separating itself. So with the sump removed, here is your oil pump, and that's the pickup there. So your oil pickup tube is held on by two 8mm, one here and one up the top there. Next up is going to be the oil feed tube, which is this one here, which goes into the block. So it's just another 8mm for that. So with that oil feed tube out of the way, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 8mm bolts holding the actual pump on itself. Okay, now once the pump is loose, all you do is just grab it, slide it down to the bottom here, and just remove that chain. Should slip straight off like so. And essentially, that is your oil pump removed. So I just thought I'd point something out. With your chain, it's going to stay on that sprocket there. It's not going to move anywhere or anything like that. There are guides there that hold it in place, so you don't have to worry about that falling off. So I also want to point out, as I turn this oil pump, you can see these little veins inside there. So they're the actual veins that fail in these oil pumps. So what happens, they actually collapse, and that's when the engine loses oil pressure, and the engine will basically seize if you don't stop it in time. But in saying that, my car has got 330,000 kilometers on it, and it's got a really good service history. I service it every 10,000 kilometers, and I haven't had a problem with it. Still on the original oil pump and still running good. As I said earlier, there was a revision of these in, I think, May 2013. So this could be the revised item, and I could have the revised item on my car being a 2014. So when it comes to refitting your pump, I'm going to advise you to go out and buy a gear-driven oil pump. You can get these on eBay for the Ford Rangers. Just going to show you a link right now. There's a company here, 4x4 Spare Parts Australia. They do one for $350. 3.2 and 2.2 motors, they're both exactly the same when it comes to oil pumps. Same thing, straight on, no problems. So while the oil pump's out, it's a good idea to grab a razor blade and just go around and just clean up that surface just from the old gasket. I'm now going to show you how to fit it. So pretty straightforward. Once again, just chuck the chain on like so. It's just a matter of levering it up. There we go, popped into place for us. Now we just grab our bolts, hand tighten first, next one, obviously you'll tighten these to spec. Now you just want to have a look down there, just make sure your chain is sitting perfectly on the sprockets like this one is. Once you've tightened that to the correct Newton meters, I will try and throw some settings in the description. We're now ready to connect our oil feed tube. This has got a little gasket on it. It's probably a wise idea to change it. I'm not going to change this one because I'm just doing this for demonstration purposes. Once again, there's another gasket here for your oil filler tube. One thing I thought I'd point out, if you are buying the gear drive oil pump from 4x4 Spare Parts Australia that I just showed you, it does come with the seals that I just pointed out. But pretty straightforward, just slip her back in like that. 8mm bolt up the top. Then you've got your other 8mm bolt down here. Essentially, that is your oil pump now put back together. So when it comes to refitting your sump, like I mentioned earlier, you'll have to clean all the surface of the engine block as well as the sump. So you are going to have to use black RTV and the correct one to seal it. There's no actual listings for a gasket on eBay that I could find, and I don't think Ford does one as well because these are factory sealed with RTV. So yeah, just going to advise you to clean it all up, reseal it with RTV, and then it's just simply just refitting it. So now with the sump back together, I just want to warn you, if for some reason you have put a variable vane oil pump back in, you will now have to follow an oil priming process to get the oil pump primed up before you actually start your car. There is a procedure online. I will try and throw a link in the description to it.